All right, welcome back into another episode of Indiebnb. Today, I'm joined by my neighbor up in Brookhaven, Audrey Birnbaum. She's a part of the music industry in a lot of different ways. Looking forward to catching up with her. But Audrey, how are you on this beautiful Brookhaven evening?
It's great here. We haven't had rain in Atlanta for a few days in the summer, which is awesome. How are you, buddy?
I'm good. So excited to dive in with you. I mean, let's start at the beginning. I mean, how did you have a couple different hats? Number one, tour manager. You've got a hat as a stage manager and all kinds of other differing jobs. So take us all through it. Like, give us your resume, if you will.
Absolutely. I started. It'll be 20 years ago this year that I graduated from UF with actually degrees that, I don't really remember a lot about getting a business degree, but I got one and I used that. I got a specialization in communication and 2 music minors. So, actually somewhat using all the things I went to college for, but, it's been in the business 20 years and done a little bit of everything. Started out as director of operations for festivals, working on management teams, booking bands for private country clubs, like putting 90s alternative artists together for private shows, and then tour managing and stage managing. Have done production management, a little bit of all of it, and couldn't be happier.
Wow. So a lot to unpack there. So your music minor, did you play in the band? Like, were you in is there a music school there?
Yeah, there was at UF. I've got a percussion performance minor and a music theory and composition. So I did play. I mean, I still have my drum set. I still have percussion instruments. So occasionally I'll sit in with friends. And it's always nice working with my drummers on the stage, coming through a venue and also being out on the road with them. It's fun to keep that going.
Well, that explains why immediately the first thing I saw you grab after Daffo was done performing with Blondshell was a bunch of cymbals. So
Exactly.
I love it. So what made you want to get into, I guess, like right out of college? I mean, what were the opportunities like? I mean, you said you had a couple different roles, kind of getting right out. So
I did. There's a company, they still are in Atlanta. It's called Six Man, and they do music cruises. Back then they had a small handful, basically started with the Rock Boat, and they now they have, they probably have 20 or more music cruises a year. And they're great folks over there. They do comedy cruises. I think they've got a Savannah Bananas cruise now. Like, they do a little bit of all of it. And then worked for a Grammy-winning jazz guitarist, and he produced festivals in Colorado and in Kiowa, South Carolina. So loved that. Worked with a bunch of the jazz greats and Burt Bacharach, and got to know the little intricacies of when you're combining like a music lifestyle event and staying at nice resort properties, and how jazz music ties in as a perfect fit for people to have a great experience over a weekend. Like Burt Bacharach, Al Jarreau, all sorts of guys that, that was a really fun part of my career, and learning what it takes to work with a resort team. So that in itself, every little bit that I've done over the last 20 years kind of helps with what I do as a tour manager now. And as a stage manager, you gather from all different types of shows that you've done and people that work in different industries and how they, interact with the music business. It's pretty fascinating.
Wow. So, like, essentially what these like weekend or festivals were is like, I get to go, see Burt Bacharach. I get to stay at a nice resort, probably go to the spa. Much different than, what people conventionally think of a festival, roughing it, going to stay in a tent,
Exactly.
So.
And they do, there's all sorts of different cruises. Like, I've done the Dave Koz cruise for 3 weeks over in Europe. There's experiential lifestyle festivals. Some of them are floating and some of them are at nice resorts. And it's fun to watch that industry grow, starting out in the jazz industry and, working really in almost every genre. So
yeah.
love
with
that.
Those cruises.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, with those cruises, like, I mean, is that like a time for like a fan to be able to interact with the artist, like probably on a level because y'all are all stay on the same boat? Like, what's the kind of the
100.
luxury of that?
That's, they set up meet and greets, and, fans are pretty respectful in general about uh, the time when they are allowed to spend with the artists and the time where they, give them their privacy. Usually there's like a
Sure.
little separate section of the ship where, it's musician time versus fan time, but everyone's so approachable. And, for every headlining artist, there's bands that are there too. And those are kind of the band and crew will hang out a lot of the times with the fans. And that's
With the
kind of a
fans.
fun part to interact with.
All right. Well, let's give me one story, good, bad, or indifferent from a cruise. I mean, I think I'm sure there's something that's up there that.
Gosh, I mean, doing the cruises for 3 weeks. So basically it's the same artist and crew. I think there was 150 of us that spent 3 weeks together on the ship. And, there's week one, like you start in one port and you end in another port. And then you do that entire cruise backwards, would get a whole new set of fans. So the fans get off the ship. Then the second week, there's another group. And then the third week, there was another group. So being able to get off at each of those ports every day, most of the days anyway, and just seeing the places, being able to spend time before the shows start every night. Like sometimes you stay on the ship and you do prep work for the events, but I think that was the most fun part. And a lot of the times the artists would, the artists would be in the same line getting back on the ship as everybody else, and everyone just it was a great camaraderie. And a lot of those fans, Dave's one of the best in the business, so those fans keep coming back year after year. It's pretty cool to see that.
Wow. So what was your favorite port you guys went to in that 3 weeks?
I think Malaga was my favorite in Spain. It was just great. Like a lot of the ports, sometimes it takes a little longer to actually walk to something, but that was my favorite, just getting off the ship and everything was kind of right there, and going to the market every morning and getting, buying local flowers, buying local food, all that stuff, interacting. I speak French, but I don't speak Spanish, but they were able, since it's so close to France, they understood a lot of what I was saying in French. So that was pretty nice.
Wow. I mean, 5-tool player. You can speak French. That's amazing. Let's go.
I love that part of it. And I actually get to use, I studied abroad in Paris in college, and now I get to actually use my French too, because I tour manage Gypsy Kings featuring Nicola Reyes, and they all speak French. So that is the fun part, spending that time with my band and crew and learning all the little intricacies of the language. That's the best way to practice it, is when you're kind of explaining things and explaining the slang. That's the most part. That's the best way to learn it.
Yeah, for sure. Well, so we move off of cruises. We kind of get into, some more, tour managing and stage managing, that type of thing. So what was the first venue you worked at, that's coming out?
So Variety Playhouse, this is the first where you saw, for your listeners and viewers, you were at Blondshell a couple of weeks ago at Variety Playhouse, and that's the first time I've really had a house gig on top of, other things being on tour. And I love working there. Everybody from the production team, the bar staff, the security, it's such a great place to work. So when you saw me taking the cymbals off the stage, that was the opening band transitioning into the headliner. So you were watching that crazy changeover process that happens between an opener and a headliner.
So for you, are there bands that are openers that have, obviously if you have multiple, there's probably multiple, changeovers and sets, what do you typically see as probably more involved versus less involved? What kinds of bands, whenever you see them come on the bill?
It depends on the tour that's being put together and the size of the venues that these bands are touring at, right? So if you have arena shows, you're getting a pretty high level opener production or multiple bands there. So the changeover for set times and how much gear the band is touring with, if they're touring with a semi truck, if they're touring with tour buses, versus if they are renting a lot of gear in each city. It just depends on the size of venues that they're playing. So, at Variety Playhouse, usually it's a smaller opener, and we don't have a lot of, I love our theater, but we don't have space for a changeover. So when you saw me taking that stuff off the stage, it was going straight outside to get packed up. As much as we can pack up in that little hallway there, we'll do that. But yeah, you just work around the challenges of each venue. And honestly, that's one of my favorite parts about being a stage manager at a local house gig and being on tour is you get to spend that time inside of the other brain, right? Like when I'm on tour, I get to see the house crew and the local crew working and working through their challenges. And then me as a tour manager working with tours that come through my house gig, I get to see the same side. I'm like, I know what might be going on today. We got your back on this challenge. So
as a tour manager, like how do you keep, cause I mean, I can imagine it gets long, dog days. We've gone, we're on night 3 of 70 or, 27, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
How do you keep everybody sane? Is that in your job description? And what are the strategies you've used?
A little bit. Communication and advanced prep work are the key portion to all of this. I always say whenever you don't, it's really hard. Like when you're on a longer tour, it's not always possible to start all those details, especially with the venues, like chasing down replies from venues. If you don't have those, or at least a little bit of information aside from what you're getting from a booking agent before you start that whole tour, it drives you a little crazy. So as much as you can do in advance to let the guys know what's going on, that's the biggest part. And then, making sure that there's enough downtime. It's rare when we have total chaotic days on the road, especially if you do the advanced prep work. Sometimes the travel is really long, and it depends on, like, usually your load in time just depends on the size of the tour and the venues that you're on. But typically for my main gig, we do a 10 a.m. load in, and then we're at the venue all day. So we'll go in and have breakfast. We'll get everything ready, and we carry all of our gear with us. So it just depends on everything about the tour. But yeah, if you know that those days, what those days are going to look like on paper, where it's going to be a little hectic, and you just prep everybody in advance for it. Those are the days where maybe, the bus stock, you spend a little extra on the food that everybody likes and making sure that there's good meals. And those are the days maybe you order after show food for everybody. Sometimes it does take the little things to make sure to keep everybody on the same page.
Sure. What's like for you, what has been like the longest distance you've had to go in like one day or 2 days in order to like kind of like, and what's the closest you've cut it on a show? Like, have you been there where you're like, hey, we are getting there, we're putting our stuff on and we're walking on and playing? Like,
that's a hard one to think of on the fly. But I can tell you, this is a pretty standard across the industry. So, your bus drivers can only drive up to 600 miles or be on the clock for 10 hours. So if you're getting close to a scenario where that's going to screw everything up, then you can call in a co-driver so that there's another driver that will sleep on the bus while one driver is driving. There's days where, sometimes it's not everybody on the bus, and, your principal artists and management will be flying from city to city. Mm-hmm. It's not very fun when there's not direct flights when you go from show day to show day. So those kind of things are the biggest challenges, or when it's when the routing's challenging. And great booking agents will do what it takes to make it happen and rearrange things, mm-hmm. but sometimes you just don't really have a choice based on a number of hours in a day and when the show goes on.
Yeah, I bet.
But so this is a good sign that I haven't thought of something so chaotic where it's like mind blowing. But there have been days when when the principal artist's flight has been canceled or delayed, and sometimes it's not in driving distance. And so like immediately you're doing everything you can to get them on that flight and make sure it happens without a delay. Haven't had to delay a show yet, which is nice.
Wow. All right.
Yeah.
Well, let's keep that record. Let's go.
Right.
For obviously you mentioned Gypsy Kings is the main artist you tour with, but like
Yeah.
for you, anybody like, as you've kind of, we're an indie music podcast. So like, anybody in particular that you kind of brought on early on that you can think of that, those were different days than I have now, but you look back on fondly.
That's, I look back to those early days of doing the festivals, the jazz festivals, because watching those grow, like that was one of them I did for 12 years, and watching the level of talent and then adding on nights to the festival once it started getting bigger, and watching some of those artists that would do like the smaller Thursday night show and then watching their careers grow. I really enjoy doing that. And even like at Variety Playhouse, somehow there's been artists that they've booked that have just gone on to explode. Like, I don't know how they got Shabuzi there last year. It was amazing. He was booked well before he ended up, like he was on arena tours when he came through our venue. So it's really cool to see things like that and just watch people's careers grow.
Yeah. Who's your favorite artist you've seen this year so far at Variety?
This year at Variety so far, I mean, Blondshell's show is great. I'm not gonna lie. Man, I wish I would have thought about this question before.
We can come back to it. Let it simmer.
I have to look it up. But I can tell you last year, because I've been a member of the Recording Academy also for 20 years. That's the governing body of the Grammy Awards. And we get a magazine at the end of the year, and seeing that, because Andre 3000 did 4 nights at Variety Playhouse, and then Shabuzi was also there. So it was pretty cool seeing those two in the Grammy magazine and getting nominated. Those were 2 of my favorite days for sure at the venue.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Anybody, I mean, I obviously don't want to out anybody, but anybody who you've had a particular difficult time working with, perhaps, like somebody who, any situations where you've been like, man, like I had to really dig in my bag for that one.
I've had difficulties with a lot of people, and not to like go into specifics about the artists, but working with people, like keeping your bus really clean is a big thing, because you're living for however long your tour is. That's your home. You're living with these people. So having hard conversations about keeping a bus clean, as far as touring. And then having, on the flip side of it, at the venue, there's a lot of people that, you get people that aren't as experienced in the industry. So you kind of have to say no to certain things. It's not hard to say no, but it is hard sometimes to say it in a nice way. Like, sure. I like to start out always having a positive attitude, and then that way everybody's in it together. And then when something hits the fan, that way you still have a positive attitude, and then it's a little easier to be like, hey, we can't do this anymore, Yeah. So I guess I don't know if that fully answers the question, but
no, definitely. Yeah, no, the approach you take, I'm sure, is you got to be very diplomatic, especially, I mean, bus cleanliness, for, you're talking to grown people, right? Like, it's not like, it's not you got a bunch of kids that are, like, hey, you're 18, like, keep your fucking room clean. It's like, hey,
exactly.
Like, we're on this bus for 30 days. Like, we got to keep this thing in good shape.
Exactly.
So.
And that's, sometimes it makes it hard. Like our bus drivers will do like light cleaning, but like you got to keep everything pretty clean. And it's really hard sometimes to get hours. Like if we're doing our jobs right as tour managers, then the bus drivers, let's say we're pulling in super early to a venue before anybody's even awake. Most of the time I'll be able to get the drivers into their room, like strategically picking rooms that aren't oversold the night before. Sure. It's important for your drivers to get sleep. Your life is in their hands constantly. So a lot of times, like, I won't see my drivers for a couple of days. Like, we'll they turn their phones on silent, and like if I need them for something, I usually email them, and then as they wake up on and off, they'll let me know. So yeah, that kind of stuff is really important. And then just doing little things, keeping everything tidy, having help checking the stock of everything on the bus. Like sometimes we'll wake up and we have totally run out of coffee cups just because we forgot to check something. It's just little things like that, though, that they add up, and then they will eventually make you lose it when you're on the road for a while.
So you just said like you're booking rooms. Like, are you like, all right, we're leaving Atlanta with the Gypsy Kings. We're going to Birmingham. Like, are you booking that room like day of the show in Atlanta, or like what is the time frame from that?
And it depends on the tour. So luckily with Gypsy Kings, we have a travel agent that helps, but I have to do a lot of that legwork. I can't just be like, okay, here, because like the better understanding that I have of the tour, like it's a complete picture. If you're just kind of letting people go on the fly, you don't have a complete picture of what that day is actually looking like. So sometimes tour managers do have to do, just depending on the budget, they'll have to book rooms, but most of the time that's well in advance. There's been times where like a room has been unsleepable and I've gotten that phone call and had to switch rooms for drivers. Like obviously we don't try to put them in a bad caliber room, but you go through certain cities and literally, Gypsy Kings especially have repeat cities that we do almost every year, or every other year. And, most of the time we try to keep consistent hotel relationships, but sometimes it's impossible. There's like touring in February in Florida, for example. There's always like a Valentine's Day weekend. There's no hotel rooms. So you have to go a little further outside of where you would normally put your people closer to a venue. So there's lots of challenges, like in Anaheim where we play at the Grove. It's one of my favorite venues. It's literally in the parking lot where the Angels play. So, you have to look at all sorts of things that are going on in a city. Boston in the fall is insane because people are up there for fall foliage and all sorts of events in the fall. So, it's just, you just have to look at everything as a big picture and make sure you're looking at stuff way in advance to make sure you're not spending way more money than what you budgeted,
Sure. Yeah. I mean, like, that's like, you don't think about that stuff, but like, I'm thinking about like some kind of like, not a concert, convention or something like that. Like a huge, like, thing that you're like, there's all the hotel rooms are booked up, but
exactly. Like you're not going to cancel a concert because of it. And, there's just a lot of things that people don't think about that are surrounding a tour. Like it's not just your show. That's the main priority, and making sure that your gear gets there. And, I've had bus breakdowns. Actually, that's bus breakdowns are the ones where I've had to worry about making sure the show's on time. But we have such a great network of people to rely on. But in August, for example, most people are out on tour, and it's really hard to get replacement tour buses. So we've had some issues with that, but it's always worked out where we make the show on time. So,
wow.
Yeah.
For you, like, where, like, I'm sure that you get to sample a lot of different, places and different cuisine, like food, food wise, where do you love what do you love the most?
That's, there's a lot of venues that do in-house catering for us, like some of our repeat venues. And one of them in particular, Ruth Eckerd Hall, like their catering team always does the best dinner, and they know everything that the Gypsy Kings have loved to eat for a very long time. So that's always one of my favorites. It's really nice. Usually once a tour, we'll do a family dinner night somewhere. And it's always a fantastic meal. But that's the thing, is we try to, and then sometimes on those drives where you have, it's like 900 miles to the next show and you have a day off in between. Sometimes the halfway point, or like just over halfway, is where you kind of want to do that stop. Sometimes it's in the middle of nowhere. So we try to do fun things like Home Depot Secret Santa. So it was really fun.
Ooh.
We'll do that in the middle of the night at a gas station sometimes if it's like not too far into the drive, especially if there's a Buc-ee's involved. That's always fun. Just doing little things like that and making sure people have good food and like local food sometimes. Like always having good Southwestern food in Texas. There's always great places. We'll always do an In-N-Out burger night in California. Not the best gourmet food, but it's always like a nice surprise when those days happen for the guys.
Yeah. All right. Well, obviously want to get into like riders and different things like, on both sides, like you probably are trying to make sure that they're getting the right stuff from the rider. And then, you're also probably in charge of helping with the rider, inside the, house show kind of scenario. So most ridiculous thing on a rider that you've seen, to date, I guess.
That's a good question. I might have to come back to that one. I mean, there's always the infamous thing about the green M&Ms, and I can't even remember what band that was. But the reason behind that is the meticulousness. If someone hasn't paid attention or at least asked the question about that, it means they haven't read the whole rider. And it's, ever since COVID, especially catering budgets and the price of food has gone up everywhere. Sure. So making the most and shifting, like the budgets have been cut everywhere. So making sure that, your guys are still happy, but also staying within a budget is a big challenge. So a lot of times, just making sure that you have the expectations managed. And, if you're not eating at least something healthy every day, like, everyone I've toured with eats fairly healthy on a regular basis and just has like the bare necessity snacks and everything. But it's really important to pay attention to the rider. So like I can always tell when I'm going through a venue and I have to pay extra attention to make sure things are right when I arrive. It just depends. Like it's rare when that happens, but you can tell.
What's the most common thing on riders that like you get for variety?
Cases of bottled spring water. You gotta hydrate. Right. I mean, in all seriousness, it's bottled water, but a lot of people these days, there's some sort of energy drink like yerba mates, all that stuff. Definitely having good coffee is important, and making sure everyone has some, like band and crew members all have some sort of a snack that they individually like. Yeah, and that's another thing too, is making sure. I usually try to keep everything in one or two of the green rooms. If you spread stuff out, it doesn't stay as fresh during the day. Even if you have someone that's a dedicated hospitality person, like you don't want stuff sitting out where like, even if it's a sandwich platter and it's on ice, it's not, like paying attention to the food safety part, because I can tell you that's the last thing you want on a tour bus is having issues with bad food, and it's devastating. So, making sure everybody has got everything clean and what makes them have a little bit of the comforts of home is a huge thing for me.
Wow, I love that. Well, yeah. I mean, we I think we've covered. I've ripped you on a lot of questions. I'll do a couple more rapid fire ones here to end it. Pete Peterson's party pack of questions. We'll get this thing pulled up here, and these will be rapid fire. Just go back. It's a this or that question. Pete Peterson's party pack of questions. Audrey Birnbaum of Gypsy Kings tour management and also Variety Playhouse. Here we go. Cake or pie?
Cake.
All right, she's going cake. All right, salad or soup?
Salad.
All right. Sunrise or sunset? What do you see more of these days?
Sunset.
Would you rather hit a home run or score a touchdown?
Hit a home run.
All right. Night in or night out? What are you having more of these days?
Night out.
I know. All right.
The nature of the business, right?
Yeah. All right. When you go out and your jam comes on, like, are you more likely to hit the robot or the worm on the dance floor?
I'm neither.
No dancing.
No dancing.
She grew up in the Footloose town.
Robot. Good.
All right. Guac or queso when you guys stop in southwestern Texas?
Both. Guac, though.
Guacking. All right. Waffles or pancakes?
Waffles.
Waffling it up. All right. Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
All right. Dogs or cats?
Both, but dogs.
All right. Ninja or a pirate? What do you identify more with?
Ninja.
She's a knight. All right. Gatorade or Powerade?
Gatorade. University of Florida.
Obviously. Naturally, we caught us to have Gatorade. Yeah. All right. Toast or bagels?
Toast.
All right. Chips or pretzels?
Chips.
Just chipsing it up. All right. Fries or tots?
Tots.
After a long day, TV show or a movie on the bus to the next city?
Movie.
Movie. All right.
Uh-huh.
Are aliens real?
Yes.
Is Bigfoot real? You've seen a lot of the country.
I don't know.
Okay. Is Love at First Sight real?
Sure.
All right. There we go. And a final question of Pete Peterson's Party Pack of Questions. Give us 2 bands that we ought to check out that we might not know. People you've been digging on.
Oh, my God. Pile, for sure. They've been around forever, and they are going on a fall tour with a new album out in August. And another one that's been around forever that I actually discovered during COVID when I was on a run is Deus. They are from Europe, and they've been around forever, too, and their music's really interesting.
All right. So we got a little pile action in Deus. Mm-hmm. Everyone check it out. Now, the final question of this interview, I'm going to have you open up whatever streaming app or way you consume music and show me your last search song.
Oh, shit. Well, I'm on my phone, so that might like mess.
It'll be okay. It'll be okay. It'll still record.
All right, I'm doing it. The last searched song was, I don't know how to find the last search song, but I think it was Pile. That was the last thing I listened to.
Pile. All right. Yeah. So she's practicing what she preaches. It's on her Spotify.
Exactly.
My last search artist was Young Fred again.
Nice.
Because I'm just trying to consume. And then my last search song was a song called No Broke Boys by Disco Lines. Doing a lot of jump rope, so got to have the EDM to get you through the jump rope 30 minutes.
Speaking of that, so I've been doing those like the cold cryotherapy.
Sure.
I've been hopping in that. I signed up for a month, and Queens of the Stone Age Sick 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 has been my cryo song because it's 3.5 minutes and it's great and it makes the cold go by super fast.
Gotta have the song or something to kind of take your mind off it for sure.
Absolutely. So. Well, I'll have to check out the ones that you just mentioned. Except Fred again. That one is my buddy really likes them. They're kind of like stick figure-ish, right?
He's just a DJ. He's got a lot of different he's a DJ, but he's like the music seems like it's different than everything else. I don't know. I can't describe him. You just got to go listen to him and you'll just smile, I think.
I'll check it out.
Awesome. Well, Audrey, thank you so much for taking the time to hop in with us this night, and look forward to seeing you some more at Variety.
I appreciate it. Normally, I'm the one setting up interviews, so this was a pleasure to share a little info. Thank you.
Of course.
Talk to you